by Representative Ryden.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Mr. Shebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Bacon, AML Bacon,
Excused.
Barone, Byrd, Basenecker, Bottoms, Bradfield, Bradley, Brooks, Brown, Caldwell, Camacho, Carter, Representative Carter,
Excused.
Clifford, DeGraff, Duran,
Here.
English, Espinoza, Ferre, Froelich. Is she here? Yeah. Garcia, Garcia Sander, Gilchrist, Gonzalez, Hamrick, Hartsook, Jackson, Johnson, Joseph, Kelty, Leader, Lindsay, Linstead, Luck, Lukens, Mabry, Marshall, Martinez, Morrow, McCormick, Pascal, Phillips, Puglisi, Richardson, Ricks, Rutinell, Representative Rutinell,
Excused. Oh, there he is.
Ryden, Sirota, Smith, Representative Soper is excused. Stewart K. Rep. Stewart R. is excused. Story, Sukla, Taggart, Titone, Valdez A. Velasco, Weinberg, Wilford, Winter, Woodrow, Woog, Zokai, and Madam Speaker.
Here. With 60 present, 4 excused, and 1 vacancy, we do have a quorum. Representative Ryden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the Journal of Monday, August 25th, 2025 be approved as corrected by the Acting Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Madam Majority Leader, members, we are moving to business. Please take your seats.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 4 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 4. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 4.
Senate Bill 4 by Senator Rodriguez, also Representative Bacon, concerning measures effective no later than June 30th, 2026 to increase transparency for algorithmic systems.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 4 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to go on the record today by saying, because we've all been saying why we're here today, I haven't heard this argument for this bill. So I just want to say we're all here for this bill because of H.R. 1. Thank you, President Trump.
Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I want to be clear about one thing. Big tech has a seat at every table they want. Maybe that's why they got their own call in the special session. Maybe that's why we saw a handful of tech oligarchs with the best seats in the House to Trump's second inauguration, 5 or so tech billionaires with more wealth than 150 million Americans. They have a friend in the White House and in the halls of Congress, and we cannot wait on the federal government to do something to protect us from the risks of artificial intelligence. Coloradans are extremely concerned about the proliferation of AI, and they should be. The largest companies in the world are bragging to shareholders about how they intend to use our private data to set individualized prices to squeeze every penny that they can out of us. Corporate landlords are using AI to price fix in the rental market, and a generation of kids who were told to get coding degrees seem poised for some of the highest levels of youth unemployment we've seen in decades. Don't take my word for it. The Wall Street Journal has been reporting on the negative impacts AI is having on the entry-level job market, and so has the New York Times. So much of this conversation has been about making sure Colorado is competitive, but this industry openly seems to be more about providing employers a chance to cut jobs than to create jobs. We talk all the time about job creators, but one of this technology's key utilities seems to be job elimination. AI tools are built by humans. They can be trained on biased data that contain an overrepresentation of some groups, and that does manifest in AI tools that end up rejecting qualified candidates for jobs based on their gender or their race. In the education space, the use of an AI tool to come up with behavioral intervention plans for students resulted in clearly different plans for students with white-coded names than it did for students with black-coded names, controlling for other factors like reading level and disciplinary records. We see this in the housing space, too. When looking at tenant application, automated systems may reject applicants based on unintended connections between data sets. Living in a low-income neighborhood may be correlated with an inability to pay rent. Modern algorithms compile and sort among myriad data sets, which makes it hard for designers and programs to understand exactly what data point that may have caused the system to reject an applicant. We heard this in conversations about this bill. I spoke with an owner of a tech company who said they don't know how their technology makes decisions or recommendations, and that should be incredibly alarming to all of us because these black boxes are already deciding who gets hired, who gets housing, who gets to go to their dream school. These are the kitchen table issues our voters want us to be working on, and these tools can and do discriminate when they make decisions like this. So let's talk about why we're here. We're here because one of the most powerful industries in the world has asked for special treatment, a special session for one special interest group to gut or repeal the limited but critical protections we have in Colorado regarding the use of artificial intelligence. Senate Bill 24205 is built around the premise that we should be protected from harmful or discriminatory outcomes where high-risk AI systems are used to make consequential decisions about where our kids go to college, where they work, if your brother can get a loan to buy their first home, if you were approved to rent an apartment. Under Senate Bill 205, AI developers are supposed to exercise reasonable care to prevent foreseeable algorithmic discrimination and provide detailed documentation on systems, data, risks, and proper use to deployers. They were required to publish public statements about the systems and make available how they manage discrimination risk. And they need to disclose new discrimination risks to the Attorney General. Now, Senate Bill 205, this is also part of the conversation and we're talking about. Senate Bill 205 says that consumers have the right to be informed when a high-risk AI system is used to make a consequential decision about their housing, education, or employment. We said as a body that our neighbors deserve transparency as if AI was used to determine that they weren't getting a job or didn't get into their dream school. 205 requires deployers of high-risk AI when they're making these decisions to conduct impact assessment and make mandatory disclosures. Now, that approach wasn't perfect, but it's far better than doing nothing. And I recognize that we could do more to reduce the impact on our schools and our businesses who use high-risk AI systems, which is why I was proud to work with my colleagues to come up with a framework that cut red tape for our schools and businesses. We were ready to make disclosures required only upon request, to get rid of the impact assessment, requirement on our schools and our business, and to eliminate certain reporting requirements for developers to what is feasible. Because we heard that developers don't actually know how their machines make decisions. That was alarming, but we want to make sure that our regulations are feasible. Our approach on most of the burdens, our approach gave on most of the burdens on big tech and local businesses. Big tech was at the table, and our framework matched most of what they were asking for. But they weren't the group that agreed to the framework, and then they claimed they were left out of the conversation. But your seat at the table cannot be only to say you should not be liable under anti-discrimination law. Imagine if in the 1960s, when crafting the Civil Rights Act or the Fair Housing Act, if members of the United States Senate were unable to pass those critical pieces of legislation without first sitting down at a table with businesses and landlords suspected of discrimination to ask them if the liability under the Civil Rights Act worked for them, and then shape that liability according to what those businesses wanted. It's ridiculous. Businesses should not be able to write their own regulations, and there should be no special industry carve-outs under our discrimination law. Our approach cut red tape for big business and small business in schools while making sure that big tech can be held accountable when a Colorado business or government entity violates the anti-discrimination law when using one of these systems as intended. This happens right now. If you discriminate, it doesn't matter if you use AI. This framework should have been enthusiastically supported by any employer, school, bank, hospital that uses AI to materially influence their decision-making, because right now they can be held liable for discrimination, even if that discrimination is caused by bias in an algorithmic system that the employer or school uses exactly as intended and advertised. Under the anti-discrimination laws we have in Colorado in particular, it can be incredibly difficult to seek accountability for third parties responsible for discrimination, because our laws are limited to covering businesses and entities that provide public accommodations. That law isn't interpreted to include AI companies because they're not providing our job opportunities, our schools, or our housing opportunities. This means our small businesses and our schools are left holding the bag simply for using tech that they are sold based on the premise that it will make their operations easier. Again, every interest group in this building that lobbies on behalf of our employers, our schools, our hospitals, our workers, and our consumers could have celebrated this approach. But that's not what happened because of the power of one special interest group, big tech. That group alone determined the position of the organization in the state that is supposed to lobby on behalf of businesses generally. There is an inherent conflict of interest between the positions of our local businesses that use AI and the big out-of-state tech companies that develop AI when it comes to our anti-discrimination law. This building has been full of lobbyists who represent various interests. Our schools—
Representative Mabry, you do have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Our schools, local retailers, our hospitals, all who can be held accountable under anti-discrimination or discrimination that's caused by AI. Many of those same lobbyists also represent the big tech companies who are desperate to skirt liability. In a conversation as serious as this, how can one both advocate for the deployers of these systems and the developers of these systems? There is an inherent conflict of interest when it comes to liability in this conversation, and I hope that we get that sorted before we come back to deal with this next session. Thank you.
Representative Lindstedt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This special session, I dived into this topic in a pretty aggressive way, introducing a bill to rewrite Senate Bill 205, eventually amending that bill to look a lot like the bill that we are voting on today. I am not a fan of Senate Bill 205. I think we missed the mark in a big way. I think we passed a policy that leaves school districts, hospitals, small businesses, and other deployers at great risk. And threatened Colorado's innovative economy with technical requirements that are difficult to comply with. This special session, I worked with a myriad of stakeholders to try to find a path forward that protects Colorado's economy, protects innovation, doesn't put Colorado on an island in terms of regulations on AI, while also protecting consumers, ensuring that people have access to justice in the courtroom. And, you know, we didn't get there in 5 days. We just couldn't. It was too hard to get there in the conversations and the time we had. And now I think a delay is extremely prudent. And I'm up here happy that we landed at a delay. I think that's where we should be responsibly as legislators. We need the entire session to get this one right. You know, we passed Senate Bill 205 a couple of years ago. It still hasn't been implemented, and other states never followed that framework. So we clearly didn't get it right. We need to get something done. But I can't help but feel disappointed that we didn't land on a better framework than 205 when we had so much agreement from deployers, from businesses, from labor unions and consumer rights groups. But we couldn't get there. We could not pass a framework to replace something that we all agree is so fundamentally flawed. And that's disappointing. So I hope this next session we can come together and we can get everyone to give something, because there's one set of stakeholders that I don't think gave up anything in any of these negotiations. And we all need to give up something so that we can do the right thing for our entire state. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for your patience as we've worked through this issue. I know it's been a difficult item this special session, but I am hopeful we can come together and pass something all of Colorado can be incredibly proud of.
Representative Leader.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, and it's a pleasure to serve with you.
It is a pleasure to serve with you.
Thank you. So, colleagues, artificial intelligence isn't some science fiction anymore. It's making decisions about our lives right now. When you apply for a job, you get a claim denied, or your child is denied admission to college. Who knows? We're going to put in preschool? Don't know. AI systems are increasingly reviewing those applications and predetermining people's outcomes on factors unrelated to performance or merit. It's about public safety. But the governor vetoed Rep. Richardson's and I's bipartisan bill that came out of this chamber and passed 55-9. That's a slap in our face. For why? For big tech. We have the opportunity to provide meaningful consumer protections that would provide additional transparency when AI systems are used to make these types of significant decisions about people's lives. 205 gave stakeholders 2 years to comply, a reasonable timeline. And I commend my colleagues from Denver, Arvada, and all the groups that work together, but one, for taking on these challenges. But despite their best efforts, what we're seeing is a classic political maneuver by big tech giants. Kick the problem down the road until June of 2026. Of course they don't want to be held accountable. They know it's at stake and they know it's in their AI systems and the consequences of them. They don't want to be held accountable. Many of us see the writing on the wall. Our personal information is being commodified at an alarming rate. On the dark web today, an American Social Security number can be purchased for as little as $2. Now imagine a system that scrapes every available piece of information about you. Your government identification, past addresses, former employers, social media accounts, breached medical records. I got a letter myself saying that they breached our medical records. A compromised bank account information. This data can then be compiled and create comprehensive profiles on every American citizen, and that's happening now more than ever. Consider how this information could be weaponized to manipulate elections, sold to foreign firms, or for those concerned about government overreach, purchased by federal agencies to further surveillance operations against American citizens. Without comprehensive framework, that can be built upon months and years to come. Thousands more Coloradans will have life-changing decisions made by AI, systems operating in the shadows with no accountability, no oversight, and no recourse for developers or deployers. Our constituents did not ask us to protect the convenience of tech giants. They asked us to protect their access to health care and food and do our constitutional duty to balance this budget. Some may ask themselves, is that the role of government at all? I believe it is, because ultimately everyone in this room can be held accountable through the electoral process. We cannot, however, replace corporate boards that seek to exploit our workers and citizens for short-term profit. When private entities wield this much power over people's lives, determining who gets hired, who receives health care, who qualifies for loans, are we really free? Or are we bound by cancel culture that would let the future of our youth be predetermined before they get a fair shot? And on this anniversary of women's right to vote since 1920, I will ask you to join me in voting no on this bill. Voting no is a simple majority, and it's not a 75% vote like in other elections. Thank you. Please vote no.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Always, it is an honor and pleasure to serve with you.
Always, it is an honor and pleasure to serve with you.
And with everyone in the chamber. Members, artificial intelligence is advancing rapidly, and it's already shaping important aspects of everyday life, from hiring decisions and healthcare access to how we engage with government services. As policymakers, we have a responsibility to respond with thoughtful, well-crafted policy. Policy that takes these impacts seriously and ensures that AI is used in ways that are fair, transparent, and centered on people. That's why I support this delay and urge a yes vote on this bill. It gives us another opportunity to get this right. As currently written, Senate Bill 24205 is overly broad and risks creating serious unintended consequences for AI deployers, including schools, hospitals, and small businesses that are simply trying to use existing tools to improve services and better serve their communities. Without clear standards or meaningful guidance, the law creates legal uncertainty while also weakening key transparency provisions that were central to its original purpose. Colorado is home to a dynamic, homegrown tech and innovation ecosystem, one that values both accountability and opportunity. Moving too fast without sufficient clarity or support risks placing unnecessary burdens on startups, small businesses, and other deployers who are working in good faith to innovate responsibly. This delay is not about stepping away from regulation. It's about ensuring that we do it well. That means engaging with those who are most impacted, the communities concerned about AI's risks, the developers that are building these tools, and the deployers who are working to use them responsibly. It means designing a policy that is clear, workable, and supported by the infrastructure needed to ensure that we have real accountability. Colorado has a real opportunity to lead the nation in creating smart, balanced, thoughtful AI policy, but leadership does require thoughtfulness, not just speed. Let's take the time to make this law as effective, inclusive, and future-focused as it deserves to be. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to get up here today and kind of explain to the people what actually is happening. Senate Bill 24, the main bill that this bill is aiming to fix, 205, was a disaster of a bill. It totally missed the mark, as was stated earlier. It caused huge annual costs to the state and businesses across Colorado. It had extremely unrealistic timelines, as usual, as most of our bills do. It caused loss of hundreds of businesses and employment jobs, huge job loss. It would have actually ended up costing, they estimated, about 30,000 jobs. So this bill today is absolutely needed. I consider this a fix-it bill. The real concern are so many bills like this are needed because bills like 205 are being passed through this body. In 2024, 205 was passed, and it shouldn't have been. Having fix-it bills like this are wasting the people's money and the people's time and our time, which costs money. Just like it did with the backflow device bill. We had to come back here as legislators and fix what was broken disastrously across the state of Colorado. When we create bills in here, we need to look at the long-term effects. And so many times that is not the case. And I've said time and time again, you make your splash, but you fail to recognize the ripples that splash makes and the destruction that those ripples cause as they propagate out. 205 was one of those bills. So today, Senate Bill 25B004 is necessary. It's necessary to fix what has been broken or what will be broken. We've got to stop putting half-cooked bills through this legislation, cramming them through. I could never, through my work, put through something that was half done, half-baked. I wouldn't be employed very long. And neither should we here through legislation. The people should actually fire us for putting bills that are not correctly done, 100% correct, and basically messing with their lives in great ways. So I want to thank the bill sponsors for putting through this fix-it bill. This bill is needed to fix what in 2024 they will have broken. I will be a yes, but I am asking this legislation, when going forward, we actually start putting through good legislation, well thought out, well planned out, 100% complete legislation, and things that were going to help Colorado, not destroy it. Thank you.
Representative Carter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I spoke to you guys last night, and I told you how I felt about this bill, and I told you how I felt about the process. I also told you how I felt about the sponsors, the original sponsors, the ones on 205. And what I told you last night was make sure that they get their flowers. I am not in the camp that 205 is a horrible bill. I'm in a camp that 205 needs help and it needs to be fixed. But I'm not up here to denigrate anyone or yell at anybody, and I'm going to be short. What I want you guys to know, I want all of us to know that in those 3 days, or these 3 days, we put together one of the greatest coalitions that this place will ever see. There were people from labor, rural Colorado, business, small business, school districts, all came together to help fix this bill. We knew when we started that people were going to get hurt unless we did something. And so I know the temperature is getting hot in this room. Hopefully that's just because of the heat, not because of any of the rhetoric or any of the conversation. So before we get there, I want to make sure everybody understands that we need to thank each other because we actually came together and did something, and we're about to do something great. So I'm asking you to vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All right, this has been a lot of confusion around this. Why I got a little better idea of why this was included on the call from the governor last night. I appreciate that. That was the first indication I had why we were discussing the artificial intelligence, and I think the need for this discussion longer than a 5 days coming here and bringing it up when we're talking about something of such import is probably really important. It's probably very important. So what we have, and what I thought of with this is it goes back to a bill that we talked about a couple years ago, 23-200. And that was the bill that expanded the use of automatic vehicle identification system, traffic cameras, for enforcing traffic laws like speeding, red light violations, and it specifically created the methodology for, hey Rose. It specifically created the methodology for selling that data. And now afterwards, now we're seeing these data centers that are popping up everywhere like some sort of dystopian fungus that are there. They're going to be pulling our energy. They're going to be pulling our water. And they're going to be sapping our rights. And so this is a very important bill, but it's one that should be probably discussed with everybody in the room so that everybody knows what's going on, not in some back room, not in a series of back rooms where we hear about turf wars between legislators of whose bill is going to go through, and then to be dumped on us for a handful of nuggets about the artificial intelligence when we need to deal with this with real intelligence. And there's a lot at stake. And for those of us who appreciate civil liberties and the threat that this does, I think that we need to be looking at collecting, storing, analyzing information about the political, religious, social views, associations, or activities of persons without a warrant. These things need to be stopped. We can't just as a state say, hey, we're going to allow this to happen, and we're just going to, maybe we won't do it, but we'll buy the data from somebody else. So we need to block that sort of thing. We need to be worried about conducting warrantless surveillance or profiling of a person related to weapons activity. We need to be because the AI cameras, I mean, not only can they monitor you on every street corner in the country or in the state now, but they could put you on those street corners. That would get back to the deep fakes, obtaining, storing, or using data collected by private sector artificial intelligence systems concerning weapons activities when the data would be unlawful for a government agency to collect directly. So I think those are things that we need to put in here and we need to address before we just kick this can down the road, because that is one of our most significant civil liberties, because that protects all the other civil liberties as we move towards this totalitopia, this dystopian totalitopia. So with that, I request permission to move L041 to SB 004.
Thank you, Representative DeGraff. That is a proper motion. Members, the motion before the body is permission to run a third reading amendment on Senate Bill 004. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Bottoms and Story. Story is excused. Please close the machine. With 21 aye, 40 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, permission is denied. To the bill, Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All right, that's unfortunate because we're looking at preserving our civil liberties. And basically everything I said would have been in that amendment to preserve our Second Amendment rights for the citizens of Colorado. Other things that I'm concerned with that I don't think are addressed appropriately in this bill and should be. And we could have had this discussion last night if it, my bad. The way this was dropped on us last night at the last minute. This entire session has not been about fostering communication or information. But it's troubling me, the processing or screening or making determinations related to weapons purchase background, that's all going to be raked, scraped in artificial intelligence, creating, maintaining, and for the government, for our state to be processing that, to use that, to violate the civil rights of citizens, creating, maintaining, or analyzing any registry or record of weapons, weapon serial numbers. Because now, no surprise, putting everything onto a receipt to make sure that anything that you've done is flagged according to where you bought it and what you bought. Now, it used to be out there in just a database that somebody could find. Now it's in a database that the artificial intelligence will find. Now, that's no surprise. I mean, that's what the intent of those bills was for. So linking weapons-related database with other personal data sets for the purpose of monitoring and regulating lawful weapons ownership. We have all these databases that are going to start. And when you look at a word like Palantir, the ominous nature of a word like that, a violation of this section should constitute an unfair or deceptive trade practice under section 6-101-5. So I think those should be things that we bring into the legislation right now. It would have been nice to have this discussion before. But with that, I ask permission for a third reading amendment.
Members, the motion before us is to grant permission for a third reading amendment to Senate Bill 4. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote.
Should be one more.
Please close the machine. With 22 aye, 40 no, 2 excused, and 1 vacancy, permission is denied. Representative DeGraff, back to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're not batting real high for civil rights because all of those are along the lines of other civil rights as well. So I'm also concerned about algorithmic decision systems or other artificial intelligence system that shall be, and they should not be designed, developed, or deployed to utilize by the state. We can't stop them in the terms of private a political subdivision of the state or a contractor acting on behalf of the state. We can't just be doing these things and putting them into motion and hiding behind somebody else. When I was doing some stuff, I remember when I was doing some videos for aviation training and wanted to use satellite photos, I had to get the permission of anybody that would be in that satellite photo. Not just if they would be, but permission if their property would be in that satellite photo in order to be able to use it for training videos. Couldn't see anything, but now we have our government hiding behind this contractor thing and then saying, oh, well, it's okay if we violate your civil rights because AI did it. So what we should be looking at is collecting, storing, or analyzing information about the political. We should not be allowing this, or social views. We've seen this in recent times where this data was put together by rogue elements of the alphabet soup and persecuted people outright. But we should not be running AI data systems to compile behavioral lists on the citizens, associations, activities of any individual group without a warrant. This should require a warrant. Not just a division of future crime that can make these decisions by themselves. Conducting warrantless surveillance or profiling individuals related to really weapons activity or any other activity. We should not be this artificial intelligence, I think, before we go and we start doing these things. Not just kick the can down the road, but these are things that should be added into the bill now so we don't have a surveillance state that is designed to violate your Second Amendment. Conducting warrantless surveillance or profiling the individuals related to weapons activity or any other activity, obtaining, storing, or using the data collected by private sector artificial intelligence systems concerning weapons activity, and then when such data would be unlawful. We're not asking for just in general, but if it would be unlawful for the other government agency to access directly without a warrant, this should not be something that is just done casually.
Representative DeGraff, you do have 55 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And then we would want to make this violation something under an unfair or deceptive trade practice because, like the bill sponsors want, or we heard last night, there should be some level of accountability for these organizations because with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm disappointed, but I think we have the ability to address these issues. And we should address these issues, so Madam Speaker, I request permission to run a third reading amendment to cover the things that I just read.
Members, the motion before us is a request for permission to run a third reading amendment on Senate Bill 4. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Representative Zokai is excused. Please close the machine. With 24 aye, 37 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, permission is denied. Representative DeGraff, back to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sure I only have about 30 seconds left, so with that, I can just say I'm disappointed with the frivolity that this General Assembly would take the civil rights specifically of the Second Amendment. So with that, I'm a no.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you to the bill sponsors for bringing this bill forward. I wasn't going to come up and speak. In fact, I said I wasn't because a lot I know about AI is how my kids cheat on homework. Just kidding. Thank you, ChatGPT. Appreciate it for getting my kids through high school. We are rolling out AI in my healthcare facility, and it's been very interesting because we put these little badges on, and we're able to talk to it, and it's really going to cut down on all the paperwork that I have to process all the time. It is far from perfect. Definitely need a little bit more time. But that being said, I wasn't going to come up here until one of the representatives from Denver said everyone had a seat at the table. That's not true, Representative. That's not true. Because none of us had a seat at the table. I'm a healthcare worker. I own a small business. I didn't get asked to sit at the table. Did minority-owned businesses over here, rep from Adams, female-owned businesses over here, did y'all get a seat at the table? We've got a representative that has an AI background. Did you get a seat at the table from Loveland? No? We didn't get a seat at the table. So I want to be very clear. There were seats not at the table. Small business, female-owned small business that is using AI in her healthcare clinic. No seat at the table, wasn't even asked. So while we were sitting in here for 8.5 hours yesterday doing nothing, and then 5.5 hours the day before, we should have gotten a seat at the table. We do have good discussions and good policy, whether you want to ice us out or not.
Representative Bradley, if you would like to discuss process with me, we can do that separately. I'd invite you to return to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, but someone came up to the well and said that we had a seat at the table. I'm putting on the record that the Republicans in this building had no seat at the table. Thank you.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Had I been asked to participate in this conversation, as the resident Luddite of the House chambers, I would have encouraged looking at whether or not we could return to the days of the Pony Express. So anyone who does continue this conversation, I hope you would bring the Luddite's perspective into the table. Okay, thanks.
Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I do have some concerns just having listened to the discussion last night and today. The bills we pass in this House are absolutely designed to have an impact. So there's intentional impacts, intentional changes we make, and then we deal a lot with sometimes the unintentional consequences of the bills we pass. I don't think anybody in this chamber and neither side that proposed bills or the groups of folks that were trying to approach the issues with 205 to make it better are going to get there very fast. The one thing that brought us here was that a recognition that 205 is flawed and needed to be fixed, and we wouldn't have time to do so between the time we meet in January and a February implementation date. Now, we've heard ranges from tweaks to working this throughout the next session. So the concern I truly have is this bill sets an implementation date of June, 1 month after the session ends. And if we don't come to some sort of fix, all we're going to do is kick the can down the road yet again. Because even if we come up with the perfect fix, we've got folks from all over representing big business, small business, individuals, governments that are expecting something to change, and they're not going to know what that change is until a bill actually passes. And if a bill doesn't pass until the first week in May, we're back to where we were, about a month between the time we know what needs to be implemented and that implementation date. So I know we've got two competing bills before us today. One gives about 6 months after the end of the regular session, and dare I say, potentially time for more tweaking in next year's first special session. Please strike that, actually. But having 6 months after the end of the next session, I think is wiser than just 1 month. We spent 3 of the 6 days when we could have been working further on closing budget gaps, waiting for factions that can't agree on anything to try to agree on something, and that itself is a shame. We've sat idle mostly in this chamber for 2.5 days, hoping to break an impasse that still seems to exist. So I just will not be supporting this bill, not because I don't think it's appropriate to push that deadline beyond February, but because I'm concerned that pushing it till June will put us in the same position we are essentially today. A bill that's out there that nobody likes, that has known flaws, and 1 month after a potential vote or the end of any potential votes to implement. So again, I think everybody's trying to come together to get something that can work for everybody, but while industry and small businesses wait for the answer, they can't prepare for whatever changes might be thrown at them. So I prefer a 6-month delay as we see in 108 after the end of the next session. Thanks.
Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know everybody's already said a lot of things about the bill and why I was not on this bill anymore. I used to be a sponsor of this bill. But I did want to just talk a little bit about the media and how there's a lot of absence of this topic in a lot of the mainstream media outlets. A lot of it's being covered in the smaller outlets, smaller magazines, things like that. They're taking it on. But the mainstream media, they're avoiding it. Sometimes it's a deliberate choice to avoid some of this talk. And that is a big failure because people are not aware of it. And they're not aware of it on purpose because they don't want you to be aware of it. They don't want you to know what's going on. There is a camera in the back. Thank you for being here. But a lot of them are not here, and that is because of a choice. I wanted to address something that I learned by reading a small magazine article recently, because I think it answers a little bit more of the question as to why big tech was not interested at going at this. I'm going to read you a paragraph from the New Yorker, August 11th, article by John Cassidy. It's titled, "Is the AI Boom Turning into the AI Bubble?" And let me just read you this excerpt here. "There are, however, some important differences between now and the 90s, one of which is that the online economy is no longer a vast open plain on which enterprising individuals can propose to build castles to the sky. It is a redoubt of monopoly capitalism in which big tech dominates the horizon. During the dot-com era, or its early stages anyway, small startups could reasonably hope to exploit first-mover advantage, gain early traction, and create durable business franchises. In the AI economy, it seems possible that many of the rewards will go to the top firms that can afford to build and maintain large AI models and can use their market power and financial might to ward off or buy out potential competitors. A vigorous antitrust policy could perhaps prevent this from happening, but as the Wall Street Journal reported last week, the administration's pledge to pursue such a policy is now under threat from lobbyists and power brokers with close ties to the president. If investors decide that monopolies are the future of the AI-driven economy, the outcome in the stock market could well mean the future gains for existing giants rather than the broad-based bubble." Very interesting that the big tech companies did not want to come to the table. They did not want to compromise, and they did not want to have any liability. It was a non-starter. That's what they said. It was a non-starter. They don't want to be responsible. And they have the path to be the dominant group in this field. They've got the money. They have the backing of the political figures at the top. And we have to win at this level. They have the backing. They don't want to do it. The guy on the first floor, he supported the moratorium in H.R. 1 that said there would be no AI regulation at all. That would have erased 205 and every other thing that we had on AI. And he said, do it. This is a big problem here. But we have something different, that we represent the people, and we can get a coalition of people behind us, just as we did. And I want to thank everybody in the coalition, every single person who helped to work on this, no matter how small it was. And the sponsors of the bill, even though it didn't end up the way I expected it to be, I still commend everyone's efforts because we did get to a point, the closest point I believe that we have ever gotten. And I know we can do it. Because as I said yesterday, if there is a will, there is a way. And I know that I have the will to do it. I know many of you have the will to do it. And we can find a way to do it. The question is, will the people who are fighting us have the real will to do it? Or will it be just lip service that they want to do something, but it's too hard? I don't buy that. We can do anything. We have done things here in a very short amount of time that were very big policies because we had the will to do it. And we can do it again, and I welcome that. Next session. Thank you.
Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members, for your patience. I will close this out. At the end of the day, we are here for Senate Bill 205, and Senate Bill 205, I don't think was a bad thing. And I think we just have to remember what unites us in this room. And what unites us in this room is us representing our constituents, no matter where they're from. The things that we heard that we actually all care about, I just wanted to remind us. We care about our constituents being treated fairly. We care about our constituents having access to opportunities. And we care about our constituents' privacy, their data, and their knowledge of where it goes. And so I just want to remind us of that so when we continue to have these conversations, we orient on that. What Senate Bill 205 did was put Colorado on the map and saying that we, on behalf of our constituents, will move at a pace that we find is necessary, regardless of where the United States is, where Georgia is, or Washington is. In the state of Colorado, we will move on behalf of our constituents. And if they ask us to protect their data and their privacy, if they ask us to tell them when they're talking to a chatbot, if they ask us to disclose when AI is being used in their medical records, in their records on firearms, in whatever records, then we will do that. If they ask us, how do we use it in healthcare, we will do that. And I do agree, we have kicked this can way too many times, and so I'm asking that with this delay, because this will be the same General Assembly, we do come together to solve this problem because we have committed to lead and to respect our constituents. All of us care about the economy, but we can find a balance. At the end of the day, if any entity discriminates or comes to a conclusion based off of false information, it should be held accountable. Why? Because when people do that, they are held accountable because we spent decades refining that law. We have read articles lately that we should give deference to. Doctors are questioning if AI is getting pathology right. Because if it's incorrect, people will get the improper medication and it can lead to death. And when that happens, who will the family hold accountable? Will it hold the healthcare provider accountable or the tech that gave the wrong information? Right now, Senate Bill 205 says the healthcare provider, not the tech. And I think, as I look around, we want to talk about that liability. I don't care what party you're in. I know we got the other chamber in here. I think the House figured it out. Yeah. I digress, my bad. Okay? But I also want to cause attention to this too, because this is urgent. We read an article yesterday too that a child interacted so with ChatGPT that he felt it was his best friend, but he got advice from it to end his life. And so we have to answer these questions now. How do we put guardrails up? That's the question. So was the bill put in a position to where it's the best? No, but the idea is good. And we have enough brains in this room to help solve for this, and yes, be the first, regardless of what's happening on other continents or in other places in this country. The last thing I want to do is reset a tone for all of us on this side of the glass and on the other side. We sometimes legislate by committee. We could do better by working with each other. Sometimes we build crimes in groups of 4, sometimes we build healthcare and water regulations in groups of 5 or 6. We have a committee process to answer questions, and we debate on the floor. And that's our process. But what I do know is it is our responsibility to make laws, and we should never be put in a position where we have to question either our livelihood or our ability to function in the representation of our constituents. And I want to be sure that that is made clear. Our loyalties are to our constituents and the policies that we make in this building. We are expected to balance interests, and no one group should be able to dissuade that process in any way that might be inappropriate or any way that may make people question their values. Lastly, I want to say that sometimes we have to burst our bubble, family. The dome sometimes becomes a bubble, and we tend to work with each other, and we tend to forget. We talk about interests in the VCs and the consumer groups and big tech. Sometimes we just got to go outside, take a microphone to the street. Did you know your bank made a decision using tech? How do you feel about that? Ooh, we got to remember those things. And we can't necessarily vilify what's happening here. And so with these next 6 months, I am going to ask that it stops because we have come to a decision. Lastly, I know we're going to have a mixture of votes on the board. So I want to recognize that a yes may mean a multitude of things, and I'm going to talk to some of my colleagues who I know will be voting yes for this reason. A yes may mean that we believe that this policy should exist, but deployers that we care about are not ready, and the Attorney General's office is not ready to execute on the accountability systems. For some people, a yes may mean, hopefully, for them to repeal this, but I will say I will personally work to see that that does not happen. A no for some people may mean that they believe that some entities, primarily, such as developers, should be held accountable, and this will apply pressure to them, and I understand that. And so today, we have to apply a balance. So I agreed to continue to be the sponsor because I come from a deployer space known as a school district that has said to me, we cannot manage the expectations of this bill, but they also said we will rise to the occasion because we care that if some tech tells a kid how to create a noose, we want them to be held responsible. But we need the time to figure that out. So, I hope we have learned from the 6 days of this special session that is no longer special. I'm with you, sir. I don't want to be here next August. You see my hair? Okay? But with that, members, I'm going to ask you for a yes vote today, and we can work on the commitment to see that this good, pioneering law comes into fruition before June of next year. So thank you for your patience. I urge a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 25B004 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. DeGraff, Weinberg. Please close the machine. With 48 aye, 14 no, 2 excused, and 1 vacancy, Senate Bill 004 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Representative Zokai.
Madam Speaker, I request a moment of personal privilege.
So granted.
Last April, I stood right over there. It was third reading when we should all be paying attention and preparing to vote. It was debating my bill to lower the cost of groceries for Colorado families and tackle corporate price gouging. At that time, Representative Armagost snuck a photo of me for the purpose of ridiculing me. He shared it with all the House Republicans with comments that he subsequently deleted, perhaps after the reminder from minority leadership about Cora. A number of you made comments about my appearance in that chat. You called me a stripper and a prostitute. Some of you sat silently by. You are complicit too. One of you shared the photo on social media. By the time I made it back to my chair, I was facing an onslaught of harassment. Vile messages that I do not feel comfortable repeating. Sexual messages about my appearance, racist messages, and then it escalated. It went from social media to emails and voicemails. It went from messages that were gross and mean to threats of rape, threats against me, and the worst, a message with my kid's school address that said, "I know what time pickup is. What's about to happen to them is your fault." My kids are 8, 6, and 2. Every parent, above all else, wants to keep their kids safe. And in that moment, I felt like I had failed, like I had put my children's lives at risk. But I did not do that. My kids should not face threats to their lives because of an outfit I wore or because I chose to stand here and serve. I spoke with minority leadership, who assured me that she would find out who took the photo and let me know. She did not tell me that she already knew. She did not tell me that all of the House Republicans knew. She did not tell me she sent a message to her chat warning them that messages could be public. In fact, I was never told who took that photo, until majority leadership informed me. Minority leadership kept former Representative Armagost on the Workplace Harassment Committee, knowing that if I were to report this conduct, I would have been reporting it to the very person who started this harassment campaign against me and my family. When it comes to women in this building or who aspire to do this important work, how confident can they be that if they are sexually harassed or worse, that it will be taken seriously? I am grateful to the majority leader for reviewing security footage and confirming that it was Rep. Armagost that took that photo. To minority leadership, I should have been able to work with you. Instead, we had to work around you. This has been a coordinated harassment campaign. It has been relentless, and I know that me speaking about it right now is going to make it worse. But since this story broke, I have heard stories from women across Colorado, from within this building and from within this room. My story has resonated with so many people because it is indicative of a greater issue that exists in culture generally and in this building in particular. And that is a culture of violence against women. All of us women are a victim of this culture, and I am so disappointed to see women perpetuate that culture. This is a culture that is designed to silence women, but it will not silence me. It will not dictate how I dress. It will not stop me from doing my job. I refuse to sit down and stay quiet because this kind of conduct does not just target me. It sends a message to women in politics everywhere that they
Representative
are
Sokai, you have 10 seconds
to
remaining.
stay out, to stop speaking up, and to not run in the first place. And that is exactly why we have to stand against it.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of House Resolution 1001.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of House Resolution 25B 1001. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Resolution 1001.
House Resolution 1001 by Representatives Duran and Bacon concerning the condemnation of the conduct of former Representative Ryan Armagost.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the adoption of House Resolution 1001 and ask for it to be read at length.
Mr. Schiebel, please read our resolution at length.
Whereas on April 11th, 2025, former Representative Ryan Armagost, then serving as Minority Whip and Chair of the House Workplace Harassment Committee, which is the body charged with investigating workplace harassment complaints, took a photograph of a colleague without her knowledge while she stood in the well of the House chamber to debate her bill. And former Representative Ryan Armagost immediately shared that photograph in a Republican caucus group chat with comments that were subsequently deleted, prompting degrading and sexualizing remarks from multiple legislators who compared their colleague to a prostitute and stripper, made jokes about the oldest profession, and further mocked her appearance. And whereas that photograph was subsequently disseminated on social media by anonymous accounts, accompanied by vulgar commentary and comments on the social media posts quickly escalated into racist and misogynistic attacks, rape threats, and violent threats directed against the colleague and her young children. And whereas former Representative Ryan Armagost's conduct was a violation of the General Assembly's workplace expectation policies, which applied to him as a member who was a leader of his caucus and the chair of the Workplace Harassment Committee, a position charged with upholding the very standards of safety and respect that his actions undermined. And whereas former Representative Ryan Armagost announced his resignation on August 21st, 2025, shortly after news of a resolution to censure him became public, and his resignation does not erase the harm caused. And whereas the House of Representatives declared that former Representative Ryan Armagost behaved inappropriately and failed to uphold the honor, dignity, and respect of the House of Representatives, which reflects poorly upon the state of Colorado and its citizens. And whereas the House of Representatives finds that such conduct can create an unsafe and hostile workplace and can have a chilling effect on women serving in elected office. And whereas the House of Representatives finds that former Representative Ryan Armagost failed to uphold the decorum of the House of Representatives and his actions were unbecoming of a member of this body. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado that the House of Representatives condemns the actions of former Representative Ryan Armagost as conduct incompatible with the dignity of this body, that the House of Representatives affirms its ongoing responsibility to provide a safe, respectful, and professional workplace for all members, staff, and visitors, and declares that harassment and misogyny will never be tolerated in this body, and that every member of the House of Representatives commits to treating colleagues with dignity and respect, ensuring that disagreements remain rooted in policy and debate rather than in personal attacks, harassment, or demeaning conduct.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I just want to highlight, you probably see a lot of legislators in here wearing purple. Purple is the color for domestic violence, sexual assault, and it really just symbolizes courage. It symbolizes survival and peace, and that someday we can overcome the abuse. So I want to make sure that's noted. I also want to thank our senators for being here in support today. Colleagues, I've stood in this chamber many times as your majority leader. I have debated you. I have disagreed with you. I have laughed and I have cried with you. And I have worked beside you on bills, in committee, and on the issues that matter to the people of Colorado the most. I have always believed, despite our differences, we could rely on the basic level of respect for one another as elected representatives. That belief has been shattered. On the day, on the floor of this House, while a member was preparing to speak, her image was taken without her consent, not to advance debate, but to highlight her service, but to demean her. That image was passed around in a private partisan group chat, accompanied by crude, sexualized, and degrading commentary. She was not mocked for her ideas or her arguments, but for her body and her clothing. Her position was stripped of respect. She was reduced to a punchline. And it didn't stop there. That image was posted online alongside a so-called poll inviting strangers to judge her appearance. What followed were threats of violence, even threats of sexual assault against her and her family. And all of this was carried out by members of this very body. This is not about one incident. This is about a culture, a mindset that says women in public service are fair game to be ridiculed and humiliated. It tells every young woman who dreams of serving here that her worth will be measured not by her vision or her courage, but in inches of fabric. It tells every Coloradan that some among us see this House not as a place for public service, but as a locker room. And I will tell you something personal. This incident has reminded me of the darkest moments in my life. Many of you know I'm a survivor of domestic violence, physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. I know what it feels like to have your worth torn down, your dignity stripped away, and treated less than human. For years, I fought to reclaim my voice. I fought to rise above the ugliness and the cruelty that tried to define who I was. And I stand here today because I refuse to let darkness be who I am. This chamber should never echo the cruelty I fought so hard to overcome. But today it has. and that is something we cannot ignore. To my colleagues across the aisle, you should be ashamed. Ashamed that this happened among your ranks. Ashamed that instead of protecting the dignity of this chamber, some chose to protect the perpetrator. The people of Colorado expect more from you. You have not just failed one colleague, but you have failed the very principles this House is meant to uphold. Many of us in this room know and understand what it means to be underestimated, to be told you don't belong here, to be pushed through prejudice, to break barriers. That fight makes the disrespect we've seen even more intolerable. Colorado deserves a House where debate is fierce, but respect is unwavering, where we challenge each other's ideas, not each other's humanity. So I ask you, please look in the mirror. Ask yourself if you are proud of what you have become. And if the answer is no, then prove it by holding yourselves and your colleagues accountable. And I promise you this, I will not look away, I will not be silent, I will not let this be who we all are. But more than that, we will lead. We will lead with courage when others shrink. We will lead with dignity when others demean. And we will lead with respect when others choose cruelty. And we will prove through our actions that this House is stronger than the prejudice that have long tried to silence women, people of color, survivors, and all who dare to dream of serving here. We cannot undo what has been done, but we can decide what comes next. We can rise together above the ugliness, above the cruelty, and above the failures of the past. We can show Colorado and the country that when faced with division, we choose unity. When confronted with hate, we choose courage. And when dignity is torn down, we choose to build it back, stronger than ever before. Colleagues, our duty is not only to legislate, but it is to lead. And leadership is not about comfort. It's about courage. It's about standing tall when others shrink, and it's about proving through our actions that this House is worthy of the people that serve it. I believe in this chamber. I believe in the power of its people, and I believe that together we can turn this moment of shame into our values, restore respect, and ensure that every voice in Colorado knows this House belongs to them. The people of Colorado are watching. Our daughters and sons are watching. And history will remember whether we had the courage to change. As long as I have the honor of standing in this chamber, I will not allow us to be defined by disgrace. We must rise above it. We must be better than this. And together, we will make sure Colorado House of Representatives is worthy of the people that we serve. Thank you.
Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Thank you, members. What I will add as a member of leadership who wanted to demonstrate the severity of the actions as well as the interest and severity of our reaction, I wanted to share with you what are in the confines of the resolution and what it is that we are asking you to vote on, as well as elaborate why this is important. Workplace expectations of the General Assembly include Part B expectations. The General Assembly is committed to creating and maintaining a work environment in which all individuals are treated with dignity and respect. Members, legislative employees, and third parties are expected to be professional, respectful, truthful, and courteous to all in the legislative workplace at all times, serve as a positive role model to others, be responsive to member and coworker requests and needs, accept responsibility for their own work, behavior, and actions, communicate in a professional and respectful manner, resolve conflicts in an appropriate, respectful, timely, and courteous manner, treat everyone fairly, and demonstrate respect for all people and their ideas, and adhere to all federal and state laws and General Assembly policies and legislative rules. And those are just workplace expectations. I also serve on the Harassment and Discrimination Committee, And even though this is about workplace expectations, there are corollaries here to harassment. What I'd like to add to what the majority leader said is for us to confront what we may be feeling right now. Some of us may be feeling a little bit of rage and that we might be able to do something about it with a vote on this resolution. But for others, there might be lumps in our throats or furrowed faces or a little bit of heat in our cheeks. And I would say to that, there's no amount of accusations or cross-blame or even cross-claims of hypocrisy that can excuse the behavior that took place with our former colleague. At the end of the day, we have to confront the hubris with that. And hubris means, to some extent, pride. And for those of you who follow certain traditions, pride is a sin because it puts yourself before either God or before decency and humanity. At the end of the day, and after all of this, there still, I want to remind people, has not been an apology. An apology is what we thought at least you could expect by way of decency. And so what we're asking for here is a statement about decency and a statement that can restore trust. We need to restore trust with our communities because trust in our work in this profession, particularly where our constituents in the world barely believe in politicians, goes a long way. We need our children to trust us because this behavior in schools would get them a suspension. We need everyone we work with to trust us because the decisions we make in this building so deeply impact their lives. And so we have an opportunity to reinforce what we believe is decency. I know we in this room are decent people, decent fathers, who I wonder if they were put in this position with their daughters. Many of you have served this country. Many of you have been educators. I know us to be decent people. And therefore, the resolved part of this resolution asks us to commit to decency. And so, when it comes time to the vote, we will be asked to confront the lumps in our throats, the heat in our cheeks, and perhaps that pride. Because again, we will be asked not only how do we respond to what they do. This isn't about what they did or what they do. This is about what will you do? What will you commit to? How will you respond and demonstrate decency? And with that, members, we are going to urge an aye vote on this resolution.
Minority Leader Puglisi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are two issues here, and I want to address the first one first. The first is to Representative Zokai. I do not believe the behavior that was exhibited was right. And I have seen degrading behavior from both sides of the aisle since I have been here. And I think we must do better as an institution to preserve the integrity of this institution. We should absolutely do better. And we need to commit to doing that for the integrity of the institution and for the people we serve. And so if there's an apology you're looking for from me, I am sorry that this happened to you. I am. And I said that day. Now, the challenges to my character, to my integrity, I want to address that because that is unfair. First, on April 11th, when the incident happened, I wasn't here that day. I hardly ever take a day off, but I was excused for something that was court-ordered. I had no choice. I could not be here on April 11th. On April 14th, I came back to the chamber. We had a conversation. You and I had a conversation. I didn't see the Signal chat. You don't have to believe me. I am telling you, I didn't see the Signal chat. I did not know when you and I had a conversation. I did not know. And I committed to trying to find out who posted the picture on the internet. Then, later, I realized, I was told, still have never read it, that it was Representative Armagost. I had a conversation with your majority leader, your leadership, and I told her it was Representative Armagost. And I'm sorry that she had bills with Representative Armagost that was more important than your safety.
Members.
My integrity, my character has been assaulted, and I have the right to defend myself. You all can think whatever you want of me. Me and my God, we know the truth. And then, through a Cora request that I had to go through in order to get not just the footage, but also the Cora request for the footage, so this is April 14th, we have that conversation. On April 17th, the chief clerk submitted a Cora request to Colorado Public Safety for a copy of the recording to determine for themselves who had taken the picture. That response was received on the 17th and answered on the 18th. Your leadership knew on April 18th that it was Representative Armagost. In the conversation I had with the majority leader on the 14th, she said that I should talk to members of my caucus, which I did. I do not condone the behavior, and I was very strict about that. And after that conversation on April 14th, not one person asked me about it. Not the majority leader, she already knew. Not the speaker, and I can tell you from conversations with the speaker and past behavior that anytime some member of my caucus, and there are some people who are shaking their heads, have done anything, I have been called multiple times into the speaker's office about what the remedy is to make her caucus happy. Not one conversation. Not one conversation after that April 14th conversation. Not one conversation after you received that footage on April 18th. Not one from anybody on the other side of the aisle. And I could prove all of this because instead of being able to focus, I have had to clear my name, which is unfair. And you talk about being a survivor, I'm a survivor too. I've been through stuff. And for this to happen, I'm a single mom raising 2 kids on my own. I show up every day. And every day that you're not here, I still show up. And I show up for my caucus every day. And nobody's perfect in this room. Nobody. But I have 3 jobs outside of the legislature where my character and integrity are incredibly important. I am not a liar. I am not. And I do not appreciate even impugning that I would be a liar, especially in a situation like this. That is not fair and it's not right, and you all know it. I have come to this place with my whole heart to do right by the people of Colorado, much to the chagrin for many of the people in my caucus who can say they don't agree with what I believe is right for the people of Colorado. I have worked across the aisle to try to propose legislation. I have worked with the majority leader to protect children and families and survivors in my time here. And the fact that we're going to use this to discredit me is beyond imaginable. I show up every day to work for this institution, for the integrity of this institution, and for these people, for the people that we are here to serve. And I cannot imagine what is going through some of your heads right now. I really cannot. I trusted you. I trusted you. And it is horrible. I'm going to end on this, and you all can come up here and go say that I'm a liar for the 16th time. You know what? The people in this building know my character. The people outside this building know my character. I have never been questioned for my character or my integrity, ever, not one time in my life. But I want to end on, I am sorry this happened to you. I do not condone the behavior. And I did everything that is in our process, which is to consult with majority leadership. I have done everything I was supposed to do, and if there was more, a conversation would have been nice. But that is not what happened. I have children too. I understand how scared you are. I am scared every day. I sit in this chair and wonder if I'm a good enough mom to them, if they deserve better than what I have done, because I have made sacrifices for them. I understand you. I understand. And I'm sorry. But I didn't do this to you. And it is unfair that I was brought into this to challenge my integrity and my character. It is unfair. And so, I will end on, we all are better than this. All of us, every single person in this room, we are better than this. And we need to show the people of Colorado we are better than this. And if anybody has any questions about my character, that can stay on you. But like I said, me and my God, we know exactly the truth, and I have nothing to go to confession for next Sunday. And with that, let's do better as an organization. Let's do better as a house on both sides of the aisle. The people of Colorado deserve that, but we, all as colleagues, deserve that mutual respect. Thank you.
Madam Majority Leader, this is your second time to speak. You have 3 minutes and 32 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Where do I begin? Very disappointed when having an opportunity to lead this caucus, to show leadership skills of really trying to pull people together, you have failed. There are two sides to this story. I am trying to move forward and showing my leadership that, you know what, even though mistakes are made, how are we going to begin and how are we going to start over? The point of this day, in this moment, is to acknowledge what one of your members did to a member of mine. If you want to talk about your character or lack of character or honesty, let's have that conversation. But I will not have that conversation here in this moment, because everyone that's here deserves better than this, and so do the people of Colorado. And I will not have my character impugned or be made into a liar because of your perception. I really, really find it offensive that you use this moment to say something like this. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. Thank you.
Members. Members, I will redirect us back. I have felt it appropriate to provide leeway given the seriousness of this resolution for all legislators to express statements that have been made in the well. I would like for everyone to redirect their focus to the resolution and the contents of the resolution before us. Thank you. Representative Luck? Representative Bottoms?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I want to address this from a much bigger issue. The last three things in this resolution, I actually strongly agree with, all three of them. And Ryan's a friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. But I don't disagree with number one. I don't disagree with number two or number three. I think we have something that we've kind of danced around, but I don't think we've actually addressed the real issue. And this is going to sound like the pastor in me, but that's who I've been for 35 years. I've only done this for a hot second. So I think we have a much bigger issue. I don't see respect from people in this room from one to the other. I just don't see it. I see it when it's beneficial, when it maybe can help you get a bill passed or something. But that's not real respect. And I think this goes back to a much bigger issue that I pray for every single person in this room, almost every single day, because I think there's something missing. The big picture that you were created in the image of God. Now, some of you don't believe that. That's fine. I believe it enough for you. But that because you're created in the image of God, you should respect each other. One human to another, you should respect each other. I don't call people whatever the hookers or prostitutes or whatever it said in there. I don't even remember this happening until this came up. But I don't call people those names. Because why? Because I respect people. But I've seen from both sides of the aisle in this building, the whole 3 years that I've been here, a level of disrespect and vulgarity that surprises me. Now, when it comes to going after your policies, man, I'll come at you like a lion. You know that. But you will never see me ever say something on social media degrading you or your children. I will never see some personal thing, because I believe that's not okay. Not because we're Democrats or Republicans, but because we're humans. I have watched people use some of the most vulgar language in this room. And I have asked different ones, please stop doing that. Because why? There is no reason for that in public discourse. But see, this is all part of the thing. If you don't respect, first I think you have to respect God's creative power. But then I think you have to respect humans. And I think you have to respect life. Yes, this jumps into my arena. If you don't respect life, how do you respect the living human? If you think we just got here, how do you respect that? I've heard people get up and discuss animals with better dignity and respect than humans. And then we say things that are horribly vulgar. I have watched people yell and cuss at women in this building. I don't care who you are. That's not okay. That's never okay. But that's what we do, because why? That's our culture in this building. I would never call somebody a prostitute, but I also wouldn't call them a racist. I also wouldn't call them a Nazi. I also wouldn't degrade people because of something about them. There's a lot of things in this building morally I disagree with. I've said this stuff. But you don't hear me attacking you over or making fun of you, and you will not find that anywhere. There are belief systems, by the way, on both sides, but obviously more on the left, that I strongly disagree with. I will discuss that with you on policy, but you will not hear me degrade you or make fun of you because of that. But this is the norm in this house. I've been called everything possible. You don't see me putting stuff online about it, because I don't care. Call me what you want. I won't return the favor. But this happens constantly. Some of the people on the left, you've told me these things. I'm not going to out you, don't worry. But you told me what's been said about me behind closed doors. Okay, whatever. I don't care. But I won't return the favor. I hate this happened. I really do, because I don't think anybody should be talked about like that. I really don't, because I don't believe in that. But I also believe it's a little disingenuous to act like this is the only thing that's happened. That's my issue. Is we can degrade women, and women is the focus for me, but also for this resolution. Because if a dude cusses another dude out, it doesn't make a lot of emotion for me. But when a dude cusses a woman out, those are also almost fighting words for me. But we don't treat women with dignity in this room, in this building. We don't treat humans, and even babies, we don't treat them with dignity. We don't treat them with respect. Why? Because at the end of the day, our ideologies, our belief systems cannot put human beings at a higher level. Our ideologies have to be put at a higher level. And I think that's discouraging, and I think it's disgusting. And I'll vote yes on this amendment. I really will, this resolution, because of the last three things, and specifically because we're all going to treat each other with dignity and respect. I don't believe it. I don't. Makes me a jerk, I guess, but I don't believe it. I've watched for 3 years. We don't know how to treat each other with dignity and respect. I get up and fight for babies, and I get called names for that. Do you realize how weird that sounds? Maybe not in your head, but it sounds very weird in my head. I fight for babies, and I'm a bad guy? I'm an evil person? I believe killing babies is evil. And I will put that online, but I'm not going to make fun of your family. I'm not going to call you names. And we talk about death threats. You've never heard me one time until right now talk about death threats. I get them all the time. Think of who I am. I don't make big deals about that. It's nobody's business. If it gets bad enough, I'll talk to the state police, but I'm not going to tell any of you, and I don't ever even tell any of them. This is egregious what this building does, how we treat each other, how we talk to each other, how we interact. It is egregious. And I'm sorry this happened to her. I am. But I'm sorry that it happens to all of the people in this building. I'm sorry when we get attacked for standing up for women. I don't understand that. One moment you're mad because we don't stand up for women, and then you're mad because we do stand up for women. I respect women. I treat them right. I open doors. I will not disrespect them. I will not say ugly, mean things to them. I'll go after your policy, because I don't care if you're a man or a woman at that point. But you're not going to hear me degrading a woman. Doesn't happen. I have 35 years, it doesn't happen. This has got to change. Not because of this resolution or because of Representative Sokai. It's got to change because we are humans, and there is such a thing as decency. There is such a thing as respect, but I don't see it in this building. I've never seen it, not since I've been here. And again, from both sides of the aisle. Never seen it. There. Turn with me in your Bibles. No, I'm just kidding.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was very disappointed that this happened. I was very disappointed when I was in Washington, D.C., and I found out that it was going to happen again. Then I was told that the media was going to drag this back into the public light, and I thought, oh, that is not good. Not for me, but for Representative Zokai. I hurt because it's like that is going to open up a whole other onslaught, because the defense is not going to be good, and it wasn't. But when I heard that it was a coordinated effort to bring this back forward from information that it was known in April before the end of session, then I have to wonder why. Why now on day 6, on day $198,000 of spendthrift summer camp? That's what I have to wonder. But we're talking about the resolution, and there's a lot I agree with in the resolution. But now I'm at this point where I have to defend my vote in the resolution because it's been tied to an emotional appeal, an emotional judgment of this resolution. And I hear there are two sides of this story. Mistakes were made. This isn't the place for discussion. No, this is a public trial. This isn't a public trial. This was judge, jury, executioner. For somebody that's not even here, they had, because this resolution was written in advance. And the representative stepped down, but that pound of flesh was not sufficient for this body. And we bring in the whole Senate for the entire show because the idea, and I get it, we have the media here, right here, because you want to make this about the Republicans. You want to make this about, you want to divert from the fact that you have not solved a $1.2 billion deficit except by more spending, more taxes, and more debt. And so now this would be a good time to deflect from that. More spending, more taxes, more debt. Day $198,000 of spendthrift summer camp. Rubber stamp-a-palooza, because these bills were approved in advance. The call was based around them. Nobody had any expectation that you were going to reduce spending. And we could have known that in advance, and we could just come back in October when more money, when the deficit is expected to be even larger. And we could actually talk about this, but instead we have this thing that says two sides of this story. We're not going to discuss it now, but we're going to discuss it publicly in front of the Colorado channel. And so now I have to come up and defend my vote. I have to, because there's a lot of, just like my colleague said, there's things that I agree with. But you know what? I've been compared to a fascist from the chair, not this chair, not the speaker. I want to be very clear on that. But the reference has been made to me as a fascist. Now, I think I handled that, but that was made. We've been referred to the Ku Klux Klan. Strangely, the Democrat Terror Army. I don't know how we got involved in that, but we've been made with that. We've had that reference made. Now, this resolution, if it just said, hey, let's do better, let's tone down the rhetoric, let's do better, all the way around. But this is about one specific person, and that is it. And it has the purpose of trying to deflect away, because this could have been dealt with by the end of April, certainly by the end of May. But strangely, it was wait until day $198,000 of spendthrift summer camp. We're regularly called fascists. We're regularly called Nazis. Those are both socialist groups, so I don't understand the nexus. I've been compared to the KKK, the Democrat terror arm. The purpose here is to make Republicans the story, and I get it. So now I'm probably making that case, but now I've been forced to come down here and defend a vote because we didn't have a discussion. We had a public hanging based on a trial that never happened. That's called lynching. Now, FDR kept lynching in place for 4 terms. But we have process called due process where the individual is required to be able to face his accusers, and I don't see him being able to face his accusers. So if you'd made a resolution that called on us to do better, just to do better, maybe not call your colleagues fascists, not call them Nazis, not call them the KKK. Well, that's a political if you're on the Democrat Socialist website as a member, then that's going to be a different thing. But we've asked for the proof. My colleague, I don't know if she's going to talk about it. I hope she will. Her children have been dragged around. Her videos of her have been dragged around y'all's Signal group. My wife's from the South, so I can say y'all. I'm bilingual. Her videos have been shared around. A video on her. You want to talk about her? Is everybody going to come up here? Where's that resolution? Where's the resolution for my colleague who's had her children named on social media? Death threats against her children on social media. Where's the outrage? Why only one-sided if this is a two-sided discussion? Why does this feel to me like it was a very contrived action to deflect from the inability after $198,000 of the taxpayers' money to solve 1 red cent of the 1.2 or 1.4 or whatever it's growing in to be deficit? We're not going to talk about the Bidenomic Express running into Obamacare Gulch, where we're trying to slow this train down. No, we just get attacked for being against the children. We don't run through the dozens, which are now showing up online, of nonprofit organizations, non-governmental organizations, government-sponsored organizations is a better term. We didn't cut any of those things. We were just told that we are horrible human beings for not being for the children. Millions of dollars per month goes to nonprofit organizations. Some run from the chambers on this floor. But we're told we're horrible human beings. You're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. Everybody can be a victim. This could have been handled in private. This could have been, should have been. You know, when we talk about having a speedy trial, a trial where somebody is able to face their accusers, this is not it. This was a predetermined conclusion, a predetermined outcome. This was a lynching. And so I can't vote, no matter how much I agree with some of the points. I would like us to all do better. I would like us to all do better, but I can't vote for something that is just specifically one person. When my colleague was not represented in against the videos that circulated about her on your Signal chat, no outrage there, no purple. Why is that? Saying that she needs to get help? 2 years ago, there were some horrible things that were said about her from the bench here. There's no outrage.
Representative DeGraff, you do have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think we need to call this out for what it is. It was an unfortunate situation. I don't endorse the situation whatsoever. I was very saddened to hear that it was going to be dragged into public opinion because I didn't want to see my colleague have to go through that again. That it was a coordinated effort in order for this sort of thing to happen, or seems like it's for this thing to happen. So yep, I have to come down here and defend my vote, but that's why I'm going to vote no, not because I disagree, not because I think this behavior is okay, but because we can all do better, and this isn't it.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My second day in office, there was a member of the majority who I had a quick conversation with. And my heart went out to him. I had just met him, knew very little about him, and I think he spoke to me just largely out of exacerbation. I was there, right? I don't even know that he recognizes me. And he shared some things that were being said about him in the world, and it was shaking him. And in that moment, I was reminded of my 6th grade students who who struggled with questions of value, struggled with questions of significance, struggled with all sorts of things that this body constantly is trying to help under the banner of mental health. And so I decided to apply the same remedy to this building that I had applied to that environment, except for that environment I did every day. This one I only do once a week, which is the weekly end affirmation. Because it is so easy for us in this space, with all of the attacks that come in all of the various ways, to forget the truth about who we are, to forget the truth of our value and our significance. In my second year, I tried to add another teaching tactic to creating healthy culture, which is praise. Praising the things that are healthy about a situation and hoping that you'll get more of what you encourage. This last November, my caucus invited me to give a presentation. Actually, I kind of pushed a lot to be able to give a presentation about how to build a healthy caucus and the various dynamics and pushes and pulls and situations that would lend themselves to unhealth, so as to name the things that they might struggle with and provide options that they could employ in order to possibly avoid the common pitfalls of this place. I think majority leadership would also attest to my ringing the bell around this topic every time I have caused consternation at this well, which, especially the last 2 years, or 2 years prior to this last one, was quite a lot. If you were here, you may remember. Healthy environments are important to me. And I think I will springboard off of one of the comments that our colleague from El Paso County just made, which is as to due process. I think it's important before the entirety of the caucus is adjudicated against, that evidence is presented that the entire caucus had read and reviewed the information in question. That may or may not be the case. In developing a healthy environment, doesn't just facilitate the work here, make it easier, make it more enjoyable to walk in the door, less friction. It also does two other things. One, as I'm sure you instantly appreciated, it facilitates the conversations necessary to make good policy for our communication, for our constituents. Because if we can't do that, if we can't have those conversations, then we end up not being able to actually help all of the folks, right? You know, we've talked about it quite a bit on both sides. The second part, though, is that by our presence here, we are an ecosystem, a microcosm of the rest of Colorado. I dare say every type of person in one of us put together from Colorado is represented, right? So perhaps the creativity of our colleague from Adams, thank you, I was gonna look down, thank you for saving me, from Adams, in the flowers that she creates, touches into the artists in our state. And our good friend from Castle Rock, with his business mind, his logical sense, and his staying presence, that also represents aspects or members of our larger constituency. And taken as a whole, if we are able to function healthily, then we demonstrate by our very presence here 120 days of the year what is possible for the almost 6 million people out there. What is possible for life out there, how we might be able to engage. The reverse is also true. If the 65 of us in these chairs can't get it right, can't figure it out, can't make space for each other, what hope exists for the 6 million out there to do it? I in no way support or excuse the behavior of the former representative in question. Let me make that clear. But my concern about this resolution is the precedent that it sets. I used to be the rules chair of our caucus, and as that, I would have said that if you want to address this particular concern, you have a variety of remedies already open and available to you. You have behind closed doors meetings. You have moments of personal privilege. You have protest. And yes, indeed, you have the opportunity to censure. That is true. But my question, because I don't find it clearly in the rules, is where is the line with respect to this behavior? We know bribery is off the table. We know constitutionally that is not, that's a clear line. But in this, we're talking about speech, offensive speech. But who defines offensive? So if a member of my caucus, next January is offended by something that the majority caucus puts out, does that enable that member to call for the drafting of a resolution? And for its introduction, and for its adjudication here? The lawyer in me would like to understand where the standard is. What behavior crosses over the moment of personal privilege, the protest letter, the quiet conversation in a leadership room, and to censure? Where is that line? Because if we don't clearly define that, we could find ourselves week after week hearing out a resolution. I too wish that this resolution had been drafted differently. And had I seen it earlier, I would have redrafted the whole. Madam Speaker, how much time do I have? Thank you, Mr. Schiebel. I have around a minute left, so I move Amendment L002 to House Resolution 1001 and ask that it be displayed.
That is a proper motion. Representative Luck, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the limited time that I had since arriving this morning, I did change some of this resolution. Now, again, had I been able to draft it from the beginning, the way that I would have framed it was to say, the legislative culture is unhealthy. And here is a prominent example of why that is. It's not the only example, prominent example. There are many examples. And so as a result of that unhealth, and as a result of the exposure of this particular incident, let us all resolve to figure out how to create a healthy space. I can't speak for my caucus, but I anticipate that some would be less opposed, if not less, let's say it this way, let's strike that. Sorry, editing in real time. I think it is potentially possible that some people would have received this resolution not out of a political spirit for a political win or for vindication, but instead out of a genuine call for redemptive health in the body. And by saying that, I do not impugn the drafters. I do not impugn them, because in talking with them, I understand that that was not their intention. But as was pointed out by the Speaker Pro Tem, I believe yesterday, if not the day before, the way that we speak out is different than the way that people receive in. And the way that this spoke out, I think, could have been different so that the way it was received in was more redemptive, restorative, conciliatory, helpful. And so I am proposing this amendment, and in pertinent part, I'm only going to read basically the additions to the whereas clauses. And the reason for that is because I think, in talking with the bill sponsors, or the resolution sponsors, that we all agree, at least, with that part of what is being said. So whereas, after line 16, insert, whereas, the behavior described above is symptomatic of the coarsening of the Colorado legislative culture over the last few years, which has become rife with false, exaggerated, and dehumanizing language, as well as growing disrespect, mistrust, and general unhealth amongst its members. And whereas these false, exaggerated, and dehumanizing words and dishonorable actions of state legislators are often echoed or amplified by members of the public. And whereas each of us, as representatives, have an obligation to uphold the integrity of the House of Representatives for the present benefit of the citizenry and for the protection of our posterity. And whereas it would be morally wrong not to acknowledge the shortcomings of all those contributing to the culture of the legislature, now therefore. And then if you go to the first, where it says, the first part under the therefores, to add after noting the former representative's conduct incompatible with the dignity of this body, to add in that we also acknowledge that he is not alone in failing to behave well amongst our membership. I dare say that all of us, during the first few days of our training here, heard people repeat over and over and over again that this building isn't about us and that we must preserve the integrity of the institution. In order to preserve integrity, we have to be integrous. We can't be disintegrated. We have to be integrated. We have to be consistent with what we claim. And so I will echo the words of my colleague from El Paso County in saying that I hope you vote for this amendment, and I also hope that we all can agree that each and every one of us, whether in seats here, in seats back there, in seats over there, or out there, or up there, that each and every one of us can indeed do better. Thank you.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank my colleague from Fremont County. I really do appreciate the time and the effort you have taken to put an amendment together. Even though we can't agree on some of the language that's in here, what I appreciate the most is your commitment moving forward for us to figure out how we make things more respectful, more collaboration, and how we can work better together. So that I appreciate that commitment, appreciate the time you took here, because it tells me that we're on the same page. We all want to get to the same place, it's just how do we get there? So thank you for this. And members, with that, I would ask for a no vote, but understand the commitment and moving forward, how we will work together to get this done. Thank you.
Representative Bradley. And we are to the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too want to thank the representative from Fremont County, because as we were talking about this resolution coming forward, we thought, what is the solution? If this isn't political games, what is the solution that we can all get behind, right? We want to be able to vote for this amendment or this resolution because we can all do better. And if you'll just give me a little bit of leeway, Madam Speaker. 2 Sundays ago, I made a text message to representative that has brought forward this resolution, and in the midst of doing it, I had just left church, and my kids said, why? Why are you apologizing for that? When they have called you a xenophobe on the speaker because you were trying to protect farmland for the people of Colorado, when they have called you transphobic, racist, a bigot, when a representative brought in hair pieces to make fun of my hair in the middle of the floor right here with other members standing here to make fun of my appearance while being recorded so constituents could see, to make fun of how I look. My second year, this person's never even spoken to me but wanted to make fun of how I looked. Why are you doing that when you've been called a zealot compared to a Nazi? Compared to the KKK? Mom, why would you apologize for that? Why would you apologize to someone like that when a video went around their thread making fun of your mental health, saying you needed help? A video about me when a man who was 300 pounds called me one of the most vile things I've ever heard. This man has followed me from place to place, and I pulled out my phone to protect myself because I was by myself, and members of the other caucus made fun of me. I've been your punching bag for 3 years. The only difference is your caucus thread hadn't been leaked to the media. That's the only difference. So look yourself in the mirror, because I will show you today the death threats that I have gotten in my kids' schools posted, and the vile things that I have been called and said. And calling the SROs and the sheriff in my district so he can patrol my house because my address has been posted because of things that you guys have said about me. And you have stirred the pot with your people so that my children weren't safe. And so, yes, I did text the representative and say I was sorry, because 2 wrongs do not make a right. I am not proud of what I said. As a woman, I am not proud, and I am going to show my children that I can do better in this place. But you guys need to look yourselves in the mirror too, because making fun of women and sharing things about me while you stand up here pretending like you don't, because they won't write about your caucus thread. Please, do better too, and I will as well. But don't tell me I need help when a man is coming after me. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think this resolution.
We're speaking to the amendment at the moment.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Speaker.
you.
This amendment to the resolution is something that's just needed. And it's something that could have happened had a conversation taken place. Had there been an actual conversation instead of a trial, or not even a trial, just an execution. So when we say there's things in this amendment that we can agree to, well, there's things in this amendment or this resolution which I can agree to, but I can't agree to it.
Again, Representative DeGraff, we're talking about the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
But just like this amendment, so we could have formulated since April, when the knowledge of this was known, prior to the end of session, there could have been a resolution, there could have been a cohesive, bipartisan Maybe we could have even brought all the senators in. But we could have had a call for everyone to do better. Because I think we've seen that's the case. So I think if you're going to vote no on this amendment to the resolution, I just think it's wrong, because this amendment to the resolution is bringing it to be something that I think we could probably all vote for, because it addresses the real issue instead of being a focus on one singular individual who cannot be here to defend himself, because he stepped aside in order to save the dignity of the chamber. He said, I get it. I'll resign now, and then this whole charade won't have to happen. And I'm sorry if it looks to me, if it seems to me that this is a bit of theater for the purpose of deflecting. It doesn't erase anything that happened. It doesn't do that, but the timing and the manner, making it into a public spectacle where we could have had a consultation with somebody who is a tremendous peacemaker. How could we do this? How could we do this better? Well, this is what you got in a very short period of time. What could she have come up with? What could we have come up with if we had done this in a collaborative manner? So we can't say that this was done in a collaborative manner. The amendment, the resolution as it stands, is emotional blackmail. This turns it into a resolution that we could get together behind as a body and say, yes, we need to do better. The culture needs to do better. In the Gold Dome cesspool, things could be better. And yes, I do refer to it as the Gold Dome cesspool, but mostly that's the bills. So I am for this amendment to the resolution because I think it puts it in proper context with what's going on. Because you can't make fun of somebody for their appearance, post videos, manufacture videos, and then come down and sit in the well and pretend to be a victim. You just can't. Well, you can, I guess. You shouldn't. Can is an ability, may is permission, but shouldn't. So if you want participation in this amendment, this resolution, where it would be something else other than Spendthrift Academy theater, then we put this in it. We bring the culture and we step aside instead of trying to point our fingers at one individual who is not here. I mean, if you were going to just do this anyways, you could say, hey, you know what, we're going to do it anyways, whether you resign your position or not. So maybe you should be here to defend yourself.
Representative DeGraff, just back to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a good resolution. It turns a lynching into a call to do better. And I think we should do better than this amendment. We can't do better than this amendment. We should do better than the resolution, and the amendment to the resolution is the way to make that happen.
The motion before us is the adoption of Amendment L002 to House Resolution 1001. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 41 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, the amendment is lost. Back to the resolution, Representative Zokai.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I began this special session at a press conference where I said that this session is about accountability. I was referring to budgets and policy choices before us, but I think it is fitting for me to end this session by requesting accountability for conduct within this chamber as well. Former Representative Armagost targeted and degraded me. He abused his position of power and violated the trust of this chamber. At the very moment that he should have been carrying out his duty to listen and deliberate a bill tackling one of the most pressing issues facing Coloradans, he instead chose to secretly photograph me, weaponize that image, invite his caucus to demean and sexualize me, and set in motion a chain of events that endangered not only me, but my family. This was not just a careless lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate abuse of authority, an act of harassment carried out from the front row of this chamber while serving as minority whip and chair of the Workplace Harassment Committee, a position minority leadership allowed him to continue to hold even after he was asked to be removed by majority leadership for violating the very standards that committee exists to uphold. His actions betrayed the integrity of this House and every principle of dignity, safety, and respect that we owe to each other. I don't usually like to look vulnerable, especially up here. We debate a lot of issues that I have lived through personally, and over time I've gained the skill of putting my feelings aside and focusing on the policy. In this moment, I have allowed myself to be vulnerable with you because I need you to hear me. I need you to see how this has impacted me and my family. When I realized that it was a colleague that took my photo and used it to spark a campaign of harassment, it was a violation of trust that deeply hurt. We may disagree fiercely. Some of us do not share a single view in common, but I have treated you with respect. I've been open to conversation. And to know it was a colleague that chose to treat me this way. At that time, I didn't even know that he didn't act alone. Learning that information was more than just painful. It was clarifying. It made clear to me that we did not all show up with the same fundamental values or focus. This was not the same as a snide remark. This was a coordinated harassment campaign that put my safety at risk, that was started by a former law enforcement officer that knew better. It was meant to put my safety at risk. So I am hoping that this resolution can be a reset. Every day when I walk into this building, I feel the immense weight of responsibility of my commitment to represent the most vulnerable people in my district and in all of yours. Of course, with public service, there are certain consequences. Being an outspoken woman of color in particular has terrifying consequences. But I never thought that those consequences would come from my colleagues. When reporters reached out to me about this story, I had mixed feelings, and I really did not know if I wanted to address this at all. The reason that I decided to speak up is because this experience is shared by workers, by our trans community, by women of color. The reason I chose to speak up is because it's shared by many of you. But you did not get this moment because there was either not enough evidence, or it happened outside of this building, or the timing wasn't right. I see you. I'm sorry that you did not have accountability. I am sorry that you suffered in silence. I did what too many of us have been forced to do, which was set aside my concerns of my safety, because the work doesn't stop and our communities still need us. I came here every day and put aside my anxiety and my panic that my kids might not be safe at home. I did everything I could to put aside my sadness that a colleague would put me in that situation. That pain still stays with me, though. And yet I don't get to address former Representative Armagost directly today, because he chose to resign rather than face responsibility. When faced with accountability, he chose to run. And his resignation does not erase the harm that he caused. It does not absolve him of responsibility. And it certainly does not change the fact that he left this chamber less safe and less honorable than when he found it. Former Rep. Armagost boasted on Twitter that he resigned to, and I quote, "take their power away so that my Republican colleagues don't have to speak on a resolution for censure." It only highlights to me that this continues to be a coordinated effort to shield anyone from accountability. Whether you piled on, stood by and did nothing, or actively worked to cover this up, you are complicit in this. And we cannot work to repair that harm until you take ownership. Voting yes would just be the first step. To the few of you who have apologized, or to those of you who only apologized to the media and never to me, you can show that those were not just empty words by voting yes today. We all have to do some soul searching about the culture that is being perpetuated for women in this building and throughout Colorado. A lot of us have young kids here. Do we want to teach our sons that this is how we treat women? Do we want to teach our daughters that this is what they should come to expect in the workplace? Our commander-in-chief and half his cabinet have allegations against them. And they have made it very clear that they are not doing anything to protect women. We do not have to do the same. Within this resolution is a commitment to keep our disagreements rooted in policy. I'm asking you to join me today in making that commitment. This harassment is something that I will continue to live with. Me speaking about this today is going to make the next week or month or year scary for me and my family. But we stand at a moment that demands reflection, not just about one representative's misconduct, but about how we as leaders respond, about how institutions protect, about what behavior we normalize, and what culture we create. I think it's fitting that we are taking this vote on Women's Equality Day. As we may have the same rights on paper, we are still subject to a horrific double standard.
Representative Zokai, you have 25 seconds remaining.
Our House deserves better. Colorado deserves better.
I ask that you vote yes today for me, for everyone in this building, for workers throughout Colorado, and for everyone who did not get a chance to ask you to protect them.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Resolution 1001. I am reading the motion right now, AML Winter. House Resolution 1001. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Brooks, Luck, and Sukla. Representative Luck. Would you like to be excused from the vote? Representative Luck is excused. Please close the machine. With 59 aye, 2 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, the resolution is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, signing of bills, resolutions, and memorials.
The Speaker has signed House
Signing
bills.
of bills, resolutions, and memorials will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate
Message
has
from the
passed.
Senate will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit
Message from the
without comment.
Reviser will be printed in the Journal. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate amendments to House bills.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of Senate amendments to House bills. Mr. Schiebel. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1004.
House Bill 1004 by Representatives Stewart R. and Camacho, also Senators Marchman and Snyder, concerning authorizing the Department of the Treasury to sell tax credits to qualified taxpayers and in connection therewith, creating and allocating the proceeds to the tax credit sale proceeds cash fund, and transferring the proceeds to the general fund and making an appropriation.
Representative Camacho.
Madam Speaker, it is an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Madam Speaker, I move to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1004.
Please proceed.
Is that the best you have? You had months to save up for this moment. Come on. All right. The Senate amendments essentially do three things. They change the language from permissive or from mandatory to permissive to allow the Treasury to consider selling these tax credits to C Corps, mainly because there was concern about whether or not if you did not sell a tax credit to a C Corp, if you would violate the law. It also changes the appropriation from a general fund to a cash fund, thereby nullifying the $3.2 $2 million fiscal hit. And it changes the floor on which the state will accept or sell a tax credit from 75 cents to 80 cents on the dollar. And for those reasons, I urge a yes vote.
Representative DeGraff.
All right. Okay, learning new things about it. Selling something from, so we're going to sell $100 for, as I understood it, somewhere between 75 cents on the dollar and 80 cents on the dollar, which of course would be necessary because in order to have a return on investment of 10%, it would have to be sold at roughly 57 cents on the dollar. So now with this permission, I am glad to hear about the permissive nature of this, that it is not required, because that would take the mandatory nature of this, made it a mandatory bad idea. But now, because we were called into this special session in order to help repair this hole in the budget that was in the bounced budget, solving this problem, fixing the hole in the bucket with an axe is just, that's what this is. So I can't get behind it. I'm glad they made it, I'm in favor of it being permissive as opposed to directive, but the selling it for 75 cents, moving it up to 80 cents on the dollar to sell it, well, I'm not sure what the rate would that would be, but again, when I figured it out, P equals P naught e to the RT, pretty easy to do, you find that it would have to be like a 57, 58,000, so they'd have to sell it for about 58 cents. So I don't know why anybody would do this in the first place. I do appreciate that the Treasury is now able to sidestep the mandatory nature of this, and then hopefully just by the 80 cents on the dollar, that will restrict it. But again, whatever is here, this $100 million that was supposed to go into the account is still not there. This is purely imaginary money. We were called here to repair the debt, that missing money, that missing hole in the budget. The only way that we can do that is by cutting spending. Because whatever you think about the rules, well, there was $700,000 before HR was signed, and then the violation of many of the federal rules added to it, and then the tax rebates, 75 to 80% of those which go to individuals. We have a different set of rules. And that different set of rules brings us up to about probably closer to $1.4 billion. This, even if it did solve any of that, would be 1/14. But it doesn't solve any of it. It just says, here's something that could possibly maybe sort of happen if somebody made a really bad decision on day $198,000 of spendthrift summer camp. I wish we had some real solutions.
Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague from El Paso County for your comments. And I will own that. I probably did not explain this very well, but I will try again. So there's nothing about this bill is magic money. It is based on a proven program that we used during COVID to raise and fill a budget gap during that time, and we are employing those same mechanisms here today. Also, this program is not required. This is a 100% voluntary program for those insurance companies and C Corps that would like to participate. There is nowhere in this bill where it requires the Treasury to sell anything. This is a program that's using the open market to generate, essentially, or to have people take advantage of this program. And one other thing that maybe I did not explain thoroughly enough is that the new floor is 80 cents. So when this program was here during COVID, the price that we actually received by using these same mechanisms and opening up to market was between 80 and 90 cents, but depending on what tranche that an insurance company purchased. We are just saying in the previous version that passed this House that the floor would be 75%. That's where the bidding would start. We are saying we can do better, and the bidding will start at 80 cents. That does not require anybody to purchase it. It doesn't require the Treasury to sell at 80 cents. That is where the bidding starts, and that is the difference with concurring with these Senate amendments.
Representative DeGraff, this is your second time to speak to the motion of concurrence at 7 minutes and 2 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do appreciate the clarification of my possible misunderstanding, but I think I said all that. Yeah, the money is not there. This is not money that is there. This is counting chickens before they're hatched. So we were sent here to get some actual chickens. This is counting them before they're hatched. Yes, I don't know what the outcome of the during COVID. I don't know what the outcome was that. I don't know what the outcome is now. I don't know if we have people clamoring for these things. That could have been that would have been information that would be helpful to have. Are people looking to but why would we be selling 100 million for 80 million to get 125 million? So again, mathematically, maybe there's some other reasons for businesses to do that. That's their own prerogative. God bless them for helping bail out 1/14, possibly 1/14 of the hole in the bounced budget. But I'm just saying that I can't see how to get there. I can't see selling $100 for $80 and then promising to pay in 8 years that we pay back $125. So my understanding, we're selling 100 for 80 and then reimbursing 125. In my mind, that is a very bad deal for future Colorado. This is not just future Homer's problem, this is future Colorado's problem, and we're creating more debt for future Colorado. And for that, and many other reasons, I just can't get behind it. So it feels like smoke and mirrors.
Representative Camacho. And members, just as a reminder, the member that makes the motion may speak more than twice, still under 10 minutes. Rep. Camacho, this is your third time to speak. You have 7 minutes, 43 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I don't intend to take much time, but we are all here doing serious business, and I want to make sure that you have the facts as I know them. We are not selling, the target goal is not to sell 100 for 80. The goal is to sell $100 million of tax credits by allowing the Treasury to sell up to $125 million. If you do the math, you're saying, well, what's up with the other $125 million? There are administrative costs. There's costs to set up the program. So they are allowed to sell up to 125 with the goal of returning 100 million.
Representative Bottoms.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I do not believe that these C Corps are evil, greedy, whatever they've been called over and over and over and over and over in this King session. But it is interesting to me that we call them these evil overlords, controllers, all this other stuff, including big tech and all this other stuff. And then when we need money, we come back to them. Now, here's the thing with this, is to say, okay, we did this with insurance companies, which I was there when we did this. This is a total different concept. The insurance companies that are one of the most regulated things that Colorado has, and regulated by this House over and over and over to the point where hospitals are being shut down, it does make sense for them to come with bowl in hand and say to the big state that is controlling everything about them to the point of suffocating them to death, please, can I have some more, sir? That actually makes sense from the insurance company's point of view. But from these C Corps, no, not even a little bit. We spend all this time calling them evil, greedy everythings, and then say, hey, we're going to give you a benefit. We're going to sell some tax credits to you. And you're going to get this money back when everything gets a little bit better, okay? The fact that it's not mandated, or directed, I don't think mandated, that's too strong, but directed, and now it's voluntary, I think this is good because we're gonna see who actually thinks investing in Colorado under the political structure that we've had the last 8 years, is that going to be good enough to produce something or reward me for something? I think when we have a complete switchover into the Republican mentality, I think that we might start seeing some seeds being planted here. But the idea that somehow this is all gonna work out magically, that the crashing and burning that we're doing, the only bright light, I just read this morning, the only bright light is that our overall economy across the nation is getting much better under our amazing President Trump. And we're also seeing inflation going down. It was released this morning under our great President Trump in the golden years. And so that is a good sign, but man, we stifle it all so much here in the state of Colorado that there's no C Corp's going to be going, hey, that's where I'm going to put my money. I'm going to get a nothing return ever unless there is a major switch here. Plus, these people are mean to me. Why would I invest in their system? They call me names. Why would I do that? This is not going to produce anything. And so when we're building hey, this is the future, this is how we're going to pull Colorado out, it's not possible. It's not going to happen. Yeah, we can force insurance companies into that paradigm where they have no choice. You can't do that to C Corps. It's not going to happen. And so this is really, I don't know if this is the right term, but this is spitting in the wind. I don't know if that applies.
Further discussion, Representative Richardson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. We had a lot of lively debate during the regular session about things of this nature. Payday advance purchases, payday loans. That's all this is. We're pawning our tax credits, taking on debt. It's got to be debt because we've got to pay it back. That's kind of the definition of it. And while there may be some clever workarounds that get around perhaps the strict language of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and I'm not sure that this really does, we don't get to grant permission to others within this government to take on debt. That permission can only come from the taxpayers themselves through a vote of the people. The same objection I had to this bill initially is not overcome by putting our permission in place of that of the voters by this amendment. Again, it's a payday loan. We're pawning the good faith and credit of this state with the expectation that maybe things will get better somehow and we'll be able to make those payments in the future. We're kicking the can down the road. We are not fixing any budget shortfall. We're just shifting it a bit to the right with this. I would urge a no vote. Let's at least preserve the dignity of the chamber. We've failed to close a budget gap. Even if this passes, we've failed to close a budget gap. Let's at least walk away from here having done the right thing for our taxpayers and our voters. Vote no. Rep. Kelty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Sale of tax credits at a loss. Usually when you sell something, you try to gain. But this is at a tremendous loss to Colorado. The bill is a false premise. It's basically stacking debt on top of debt. Debt we're already in, debt we're already feeling, debt that's causing the implosion of Colorado financially right now. This is a very bad decision. We're mortgaging Colorado's future with this bill. It's a ridiculous action, and it's a very bad deal, extremely bad deal for Colorado. We will continue to lose money in Colorado. This is just bleeding us dry. This mechanism from the COVID era, I believe, contributed to the shortfall that we have today. And yet we're going to instill it again. We're going to keep making bad mistakes after bad mistakes instead of actually coming up with solutions that will fix our problems, our financial problems here in Colorado. Again, we ignore the long-term effects that we force on our great state. Again, like I said earlier, there's a splash, but the rings that go out from that splash are destroying everything it touches. That's exactly what we're seeing here today. Stop being short-sighted. Start looking at the long-term effects. This is a very bad deal. There's no way I would ever invest in something like this. instead of cutting spending, which we have not done in this chamber, we have not cut a single thing. We're continuing to find ways of a shell game to try to justify where money is coming from, going to. Maybe people won't pay attention over here while I slide things over here. Pet projects are what you don't want to cut, but pet projects are what needs to go. You're not willing to do that, so you're trying to take it from everyone else. Bills like this and the others that they have crammed through special session are taking money away from, we're taxing businesses, we're taxing people. We're going to end up seeing businesses leave the state, which is a loss of jobs, loss of income, loss of revenue to the state. Again, it's just perpetual decisions, bad decisions being made over and over and over. Republicans have brought several, actually almost $1 billion worth of savings that we could cut out of our budget. And every single one of them has been ignored and turned down. But yet you'll rather do a shell game like this.
And Rep. Kelty, I'll ask you to stop referring to policy as a shell game, which really does impugn the motives of the sponsors. You are welcome to express your displeasure with the policy in different ways.
It is my opinion that it's a shell game.
I mean,
Does that
marginally
work?
better, but we could try again.
Constantly being talked down to in this well. I never get it. It's not a solution. We're not proposing solutions. You're mortgaging Colorado's future so pet projects won't get cut. It makes no sense. We need to make cuts and not false promises, especially like this. I ask for a no vote.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 25B 1004. Mr. Schiebel, please open up the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Story. Rep. Story is excused. Please close the machine. With 41 aye, 20 no, 2 excused, and 1 vacant, the motion is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move for the repassage of House Bill 1004 as amended.
The motion before us is the repassage of House Bill 1004 as amended. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 41 aye, 20 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacant, House Bill 1004 is passed as amended. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine.
Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1006.
House Bill 1006 by Representatives Brown and Gilchrist, also Senators Judah and Mulca, concerning modifications to the Colorado Health Insurance Affordability Enterprise to address the affordability of health insurance in the individual market using non-appropriated funding sources and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I haven't even made the motion yet. Come on. Healthcare is a true human right, but the bill's money just wasn't right. So we added some pages that made some great changes, and now parents can sleep through the night. I move to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1006.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. The amendment that was added in the Senate is quite long, but it basically does two things. It removes the unclaimed property trust fund as the funding source for the bill and instead allows the treasurer to sell up to $100 million of premium tax credits with the proceeds allocated towards the HIAE fund. It also directs $10 million from the refinance discretionary account to the HIAE. Some of you all may know this as the bridge money. So that ended up in the bill as well. So I want to thank the representative from Jefferson County as well as the representative from Glenwood Springs for their advocacy on behalf of that money and the fund and the conversation that they started in this chamber. With that, we would ask for an aye vote on concurrence.
Representative DeGraff? It's the motion to concur. So it's on the concurrence. The Senate amendments that occurred in the Senate. Okay. Yes. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All right, I just want to know if basically what we're looking at is the previous bill part due. I mean, if I go through this, I see a lot of double underline, a lot of shading, a lot of everything, but what it sounds like is we're just going to do another sale of $100 million, or we're going to borrow the $100 million of tax credits, and is it going to be the same payment scheme as the previous bill? So I got a little stuck on that. I was wondering if you could explain it, for the slow kids like me.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my good colleague from El Paso County for his question. Yes, the funding mechanism for this bill is the same as the one that existed in 1004. We worked with both the Treasurer's Office, the Governor's Office, as well as industry to make sure that this was a viable solution for a short-term, one-year fix for this particular problem. And we came up with a solution, and I want to thank all of the parties involved for getting together and making sure that we could make this work and protect health insurance for 20,000 Coloradans next year.
Representative DeGraff, this is your second time to speak. You have 9 minutes, 17 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay, so now 1 year that we're going to borrow, we have a $1.4 billion deficit. We're going to solve 1/14 of that by borrowing and adding it to next year based on really no indication that we're going to either turn course or, this would be in my wildest dreams, that somehow in the next session we don't add more to the spending, but nobody believes that's going to happen. So I'm curious, do we have people that are lining up to pay $100 million, to commit $100 million into this for, the previous one was 2.5% interest, which is kind of the equivalent of inflation, unless you're looking at Bidenomics, where it was some years it was 8%, some years it was 4%. So that wouldn't even keep up with inflation. I guess, with the current administration, you have at least a better idea that's not going to happen. But I'm just curious, do we have C corporations, those dreaded entities called the C corporations, do we have those individuals that are just clamoring to tie up $100 million at a very low interest rate? Because before it was no interest rate. I'm just curious how this whole thing works.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes.
Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I absolutely admire simple, direct answers, so thank you for that. And I admit to being a little slow. You had said earlier that this is the same mechanism. Is it the same $100 million, so it's $200 million in credits now? So I have to ask, why don't we just sell $1.2 billion worth of credits and be done with this? And it was wrong in the last bill. Now I guess it's going to be doubly wrong. If we're not going to ask the people to take on $100 million in debt, I guess we shouldn't ask them to take on $200 million in debt. And at the end of the day, we've still closed only 1/3 of the gap we were asked to. So I do not think we should be mortgaging the reputation of this House to not even accomplish what we were trying to accomplish. So vote no on this one too. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the concurrence to Senate amendments to House Bill 1006. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 41 aye, 20 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, the motion to concur is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the repassage of House Bill 1006 as amended.
The motion before us is the repassage of House Bill 1006 as amended. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Clifford, please close the machine. With 41 aye, 20 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, House Bill 1006, as amended, is repassed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Members, we have an order of business to tend to, and that is the appointment to the Legislative Council Committee. As a reminder to all of you, appointments to Legislative Council require a recorded vote. It does require a majority. And before we make that Madam Majority Leader, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Representative Baron appointment to the Legislative City Council be confirmed.
Members, before we take this vote, I do want to remind everyone that Representative Barone did win the best hair out of the hair caucus last spring. Congratulations, Representative Barone. Members, as stated pursuant to 2-3-301 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, appointments to Ledge Council Committee require a recorded vote. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 60 aye, 1 no, 3 excused, and 1 vacancy, Representative Barone is appointed to Legislative Council. Round of applause. Mr. Schiebel, delivery of bills to the governor.
The acting chief clerk of the House of Representatives
Delivery of
reports-
bills to the governor will be printed in the journal. Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate voted
Message
to
from
concur.
the Senate will be printed in the journal. Members, it is usually our custom and practice to notify the governor when we are ending our business, especially during a special session. Unfortunately, the governor is not in the building today, so I would invite AML Bacon, Representative Woodrow, and Representative Woog, our committee, to notify the governor to sit back and relax. Your services are not needed today. Members, Mr. Schiebel, printing report.
The acting chief clerk
The
reports
printing report
following.
will be printed in the journal. Members, I would invite all of you to once again thank our amazing House Services staff, Legislative Council staff, Office of Legislative Legal Services, the Joint Budget Committee, our audit staff, sergeants, our janitorial staff. What a joy it is to serve with all of them. Members, as we conclude our business, I do want to thank you all. It has been a somber day. We have been successful in the call that was presented to this legislature, and I am grateful to all of you for the amount of time, energy, and effort you put into this work. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House adjourn to CNADA.
At the hour of 3:34, sorry.
No, go ahead.
At the hour of 3:34, with both the House of Representatives and the Senate being in agreement, and on motion of Majority Leader Duran, the first extraordinary session of the 75th General Assembly is declared adjourned, sine die.